Welcome to Podcast Answers, the show where I help you start and grow your podcast, answering every kind of question about podcasting. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about meetups. What's a meetup? Why should we have a meetup? How does that make your podcast go well and help grow your podcast? So today we are, again, talking about meetups. So I would love to chat with you. If you've ever done a meetup, stick around. If you've never done a meetup, I would love to talk because we're going to be talking about meetups. So guys, why does meetups matter? So a meetup, let's just define that. It can be physical, in person, it can be virtual, it can be virtual or in person. It doesn't really matter. A meetup, the idea of a meetup is to have your listeners get together in one place. And again, that can be physical, virtual. So some ideas, you could have a coffee shop meetup in your local coffee shop, or you could go and you could have a Zoom virtual meetup, things like that. So let's talk a little bit why meetups matter before we get into the meat of meetups, if you will. So let's chat a little bit today about meetups and why they matter. So I cannot find my mouse. There it is. So listeners become more than just community members. They become personal friends when you have a meetup. When you have a meetup, listeners can get together. They find out who you are. They get a chance to meet you, but then also other listeners. They know that they're not just listening alone. So just like you who are podcasting, sometimes podcasting feels like it's a endeavor that you're doing on your own, because sometimes it feels like no one's here listening. It feels like there's not actually anybody that's here. You're just talking to nobody. So again, that's the real reason that I do my shows live on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, just because it feels like sometimes people aren't listening. They don't know you because you're just talking to the ether. So sometimes it feels lonely doing podcasting. So listeners are the same way. If listeners are not engaging with you, or with each other, they may not feel like there's a sense of community. So meetups are where they become more than just friends. They become community members. It builds a stronger loyalty and retention for your podcast also too, because if people have met you in person or met your people, your virtual people, wherever, it's going to build a stronger sense of loyalty and retention, because they're going to be more likely to stick around than to go to somewhere else, because they know you, they have a personal commitment. So the other thing too is it also helps word of mouth growth, because people can say, hey, what are you doing Saturday? Well, I'm going to go hang out with the Podcast Answers crew over at XYZ. And so it does that, but it also provides networking opportunities for your listeners, meaning the fact that, let's say I have listeners here who maybe are really, really good at doing video, but some of my listeners are not. They've never done video. And so during this meetup, it gives them the opportunity to network and be able to provide services for other people who are in your listening audience also. So it may be that helps outgrow each other's businesses too. It also sometimes can help actually create content ideas for your show. Because we may get together and we may be talking about, obviously if we have a meetup, I'm going to be talking about podcasting and everything like that. And so people are going to be talking about podcasting. So it could actually come up with ideas, because we may be in a meetup and Joe may say something like, hey, I would love to know how to have a webinar series. And I can say, hey, Joe, that's great. I'm going to do an episode on webinars. And so it helps create that content factory for you and your listeners, because it allows them to talk and chat. And again, they're listeners of your show. They may have questions, and that's going to allow you to answer that on your podcast, or even go, hey, Joe's actually a really good expert at XYZ. I would love to have him on the show and actually introduce him to more people. So those are some reasons why you should have a meetup. Again, kind of just it it's fun. It allows connection, and ultimately, it's going to build better brand loyalty to your podcast. So let's go ahead and talk first about virtual meetup ideas, because let's face it, I love actually getting together in person, but this day and age with the internet and with Zoom and things like that, it's really easy to host a virtual meetup. So some things that you can do are some ways that you can have a virtual meetup is Zoom. I mentioned it, Zoom. So I have a Zoom account that I have because I bring my guests in via Zoom when I have guests, and so that's a way that you could do it. You could create a Zoom room and just have people show up. That's a great way to get people together. And then you could also do a Google Meet if you've got a Google account. Discord stages. Discord has live things in it. So if you've got a really large Discord community, I've talked a little bit before on this show about having community and where and how you can have your communities virtually live. And one of the ways that I've said was Discord. And we do actually have a Discord. If you go to podcastanswers.com/Discord, you can get to our Discord for this show. But Discord is a way that you can have kind of a community and people asking questions. And so, but Discord allows you to have a virtual stage. And so you can have both video and or audio and just create this stage where people can come in, hang out, chat, do whatever they want, talk to other people, things like that. The other way you could do it is you could do a YouTube live. Now, I am all about live video. The problem with doing a YouTube live is it's less about community and about virtual meetups than it is like broadcasting your show. So again, like I was saying, you could have a Zoom meeting and then broadcast that Zoom meeting, but I really don't feel like that's a great place to have a virtual meetup. I would say that's a last case place to have it, because you can do that and you can have people talk in the comments, but it's not the same as them actually talking to each other. So the other great thing about Zoom is you can do it and have a breakout room. So I'm going back to the Zoom idea, but you could have breakout rooms. So you could have one main large meeting. Let's say you have 100 people come to your thing, or 300 people, or however many that your Zoom license can actually hold, and you have them. You have them come into there and you do like a session or something like that. You can make it kind of like a stage too. You can mute everybody and spotlight people, so it's just you speaking. And then what you can do is, if you really want to, you could break everybody up into breakout rooms, give them discussion topics, things like that. So it's more like chatting around your table. So that's a really great way to do it. So these virtual events are great for like audience questions, Ask Me Anything sessions, or episode follow-ups. So it's a great way to have the listeners be able to have a meetup. So what I've done before, I'm not currently doing it in this episode right now. I probably should, but I talked about episode follow-ups. So that's a great way if you record your show live like I do, and then you just stay afterward to chat. And so what I've done before is, again, I'm broadcasting to YouTube, Facebook, Instagram as we're going live here, but then what I do is I could run a Zoom meeting at the same time, shove all of that audio and video into that Zoom room so people can hang out and watch it together. I ask that people mute when they're in there. But then what happens is, after the show, what they can do is, if we stay here and then 1 second here. Sorry. If we could say after the show, that will have to be edited out. Then what happens is, then people can stay and they can do the show, or they can talk and hang out and just continue to chat. So I'm done. I stop my YouTube streaming, but my Zoom rooms continues to stay, and then they can just do continue to chat and things like that. Sorry, I was thrown off. My wife texted me about something while we were recording this, so sorry. Then the other thing is Ask Me Anything session. So you can say, like, let's do a Ask Me Anything session, or an office hours. Office hours are great too. So have people come in and ask you anything about that. You can if you really wanted to, you could do like a listener co-working session. So silent work sessions where people are just hanging out together, editing sessions. Like that would be something that you could do for podcasting if you were a podcaster and you wanted to work on your show. You could have people, a podcast network, come together and work together. Not so much a great thing for a community hangout, but it could work. Now, other things you could do too is on, let's say on Discord, you could have a game night where people are gaming and having out and just kind of being together. You could also do virtual workshops too. So some things we could talk about if we were doing a virtual workshop for this podcast, is we could do microphone setups, we could do editing workflow, things like that, virtual, like different workshops where people can ask you questions. Again, this pertains to podcast answers because I'm doing a show about podcasting, but I'm sure for your niche, you could find some sort of a workshop that you could do to have that. So now that we've talked a little bit about virtual meetups, we could talk about in-person meetups. So how does that work? How does your in-person meetups work? So you can rent a coffee shop. That's simple and low pressure, and you wouldn't even need to rent it. You could just go in there and hang out if you're not having a large group. Now, again, if you are having a large group, I would definitely recommend talking with the coffee shop first, because if you don't, you're more likely to have if you have a big group show up, then they're not going to be able to seat everybody. So coffee shops may have a way to go in and allow you to listen, to rent a room and say, hey, I'm going to have a room off to the side. Again, that may cost you something, but it will allow you to have a meetup. It's really kind of low pressure though, because it's kind of nice. You can say, hey, listeners, I'm going to be at coffee shop XYZ this Saturday from 10 to 12, and I would love to chat with you. I would love to come out and talk, and I would love to have you come out and hang out. And so no pressure, just come out. I'm going to be here. If no one shows up, no one shows up, but I'm going to be here. This is also great if you have a large listener base and you're traveling. You can say, and this works really well for if you have a podcast host that allows you to do pre-roll, post-roll advertisements. You can put this little blurb of audio in right before your episode, and you can say, hey, listeners, I'm going to be in Dallas this Sunday, and I'm going to meet at this coffee shop at 10 to 12. Come hang out with me. And then the great thing about that is you can put that before all of your episodes and then remove it when you're done. Because again, if you're giving information that's timely like this, it's a great idea to put it in all of your back catalogs and be able to take it out. Because when the coffee shop session is done, when you're no longer in Dallas, you don't want people to get really confused, and you don't want to necessarily have to have that in your episode. So you can pull that away from your episode when you're done if you're using pre-roll, post-roll, things like that. And some podcast hosts even will allow you to target certain specific geographic areas. So you could just only have that audio coming in if you're in the Dallas metropolitan area. So that's a great way to do that, to have your meetup in person, again, at a coffee shop, super low pressure. Now, the other thing that you can do, which is going to be a little bit more involved, is a physical podcast recording meetup session. So this will give you a live audience interaction time to be a part of the show, to be involved in it. And one of the ways I've done this a couple of times for different podcasts, and the nice thing about it is you can have listener questions come in. You can have guest panels, audience stories. So this is going to be a little bit more involved because you're going to need to haul all of your podcasting equipment. Your podcast is going to sound different because it is recorded live in a studio audience. You'll probably also, depending on the size of the room, you're going to need some other equipment like a PA so that people that are in the room can actually hear you. So depending if the room is very large, you're going to need some sort of room. And now this, you are going to actually need to talk to the venue about this, because you are bringing in equipment to do some recording. You're probably maybe going to need some internet access if you're streaming it live, things like that. So it is a little bit more involved. But the great thing about that is then not only can your guests meet up and chat with you, but they can also then you're recording an episode that's put out. So they're there. Like just think about when you go to a live concert and they record it and they put it out later. Like there's something special about that, right? Even though you may not be able to hear yourself scream, "I love you, band XYZ." Like, I mean, you may be able to, but even if you can't, you know that you were there. You know that you were part of that. You know that that clapping is you. Like you know that the screaming, that yelling is you. And so it creates some loyalty and it creates some just sense of sharing and it's just a kind of a cool concept. But again, it does take a lot more work on that behalf because you do have to plan a lot more on that. You have to get the word out longer in a time in advance because this works great if people are going to travel to you too. If you have a huge giant podcast listening, but people are going to travel to you for those live episodes, you could put on a larger day show. So if you were doing something like you could have guest speakers in your niche. So if I was doing podcasting, I could have maybe somebody from Ecamm come talk because they're podcasting adjacent with the video editing that their video streaming software that they create. And so that's some way that you can that's ways that you can have do make a big giant production out of it. But again, you will need to, if you're going to do that, you are going to need to have more of planning time involved in this because you're going to need to give people time to travel. You're going to need to get people time to buy tickets to things. You could make this event free. You could make it a paid event like that. Just again, depending on your listener size and what you're going to be doing with that. So now, again, if you can make a giant, you actually make it a giant conference meetup where you're saying things like, we're going to have these sessions and you can actually do this virtual too. So Zoom actually has a great platform for this. They have Zoom events. And now, again, this is a paid thing and it's going to cost you some to attend or to get that license. It may not be actually feasible for you. But at the same time, we can go into Zoom events at some other point. But what Zoom events allows you to do is create a whole like website for the conference. So you have like a lobby. People can go into the lobby and chat. You can have your sponsors have virtual pages, things like that, where people can visit the pages. You can have a main session going on, and then you can do breakout sessions where people can go to different tracks, different people speaking and things like that. You can do that. So you can do that virtually as well as physically. So you think of a conference, you can do that. Again, this is going to be a more produced thing. It's going to take more to do than just a recorded episode, but you can do that. Now, you can also maybe just have a listener appreciation event too. So you don't need to have something. You could do barbecue, pizza night, arcade, bowling, park meetup. Very, very like simple, super easy. You can just say, hey, we're going to show up and have some pizza. We're going to be at this place and we're going to just meet up and hang out. So again, this is kind of back along the lines of that coffee shop idea where you're just meeting up and you're going to talk about, the whatever. It's just gonna be natural conversation. There's not gonna be really an event that happens. It's just everyone hanging out. So here are a few tips for having events, whether it be virtual or you're gonna have them in person. So start small. I would say even 3 to 5 people is a win. If 3 to 5 people show up to your event, whether that be virtual or live, that's the way to go. Now, the reason I say start small is because if you host an event and 1,000 people show up, there's a lot more pressure to make that something grand and something that's going to last and something that people are going to feel like they got a lot of value out of. So you're going to want to start small with that. But again, make it easy to attend, to have a clear time, a clear platform, short description, simple sign up. So if you're going to make it something that people need to sign up for, again, make it a very clear time that people can join. Again, now that's a little bit harder on virtual because people are all across the globe. I know I have friends that live in Florida. I have friends that live in the UK. I have friends that live in Hawaii. And so if we're planning a meetup, we're going to try to get all of those times something that people can do. Now, you could always do two different events if you want to. You could have a UK virtual event. You could have Eastern time zone virtual event. But make it clear, make it something easy for people to get onto. So if you're going to do it in Zoom, people know Zoom. People know Zoom. So they're likely to go in there. Make it super simple to sign up for too. So if people are going to sign up, again, this doesn't necessarily apply to the coffee shop thing where you're saying, I'm going to be here, come hang out if you want to, but make it a simple sign up if they have to sign up. Don't make them jump through a lot of hoops. So also give people something to talk about too, when they're there too. So these are some things that if you're meeting in groups, like a smaller coffee shop type of thing too, you're going to want to give people things to talk about. So say things like, hey, what kind of podcasts are you guys listening to right now? And just have them talk among their table groups, or just even if it's a small, like not a very big thing, these are just have some prompts for things to talk about. So you can say, what gear are you guys using? What's their biggest creator challenge right now? Just some things that you can give people to talk about. Also, you're going to want to capture some content for this too, whether it be photos, clips, testimonies, behind the scenes content. This is going to help you promote more future events too. So if people see lots of laughing people with photos in your photos, and you're sharing that on social media, people are going to be more likely to want to come to that. Your other listeners, next time you have one, are going to be likely to say, hey, I know that going to a coffee shop in Northern Indiana is a lot of work to get to, but I'm going to go to it because it looks like I had a lot of fun, and I'm missing out because I'm not there. You can also have clips. So video, whether it be video or audio clips, just talk and testimonies talking about why the event was fun and why they wanted to do there. Again, more behind the scenes content too, if you have something that you can do that, because it helps promote things along the way when you're going to be doing that. So the goal isn't necessarily here to get famous, but the goal is to make your listeners feel like they belong somewhere. By meetups, you're not saying, "Hey guys, I'm super famous, come see me." I mean, you're creating community with that. You're creating something where people are going to want to listen to you, and they're going to be your friends for life because they've met you, especially if you're having an in-person event, because in-person events, guys, are really the way to go. I think if you can do in-person events, because again, just having people together physically does something for community. Now, you can do that virtually too, and you can create that sense of community virtually. But I think really, if you can do a physical event, I'm going to label it right now. Do a physical event. So, guys, if you didn't know, I actually host an office hours style community get together every Monday. You can go to podcastanswers.com/office hours. That's all one word to sign up for that. And office hours is just that. It's an open time for people to get together, to hang out, to ask questions. Because again, my whole goal with this podcast is to answer people's questions, but I can't answer the questions for people if they don't give them. So you can come, you can have one-on-one time with me and anybody else who is part of the community. Again, podcastanswers.com/office hours every Monday at noon Eastern. Sign up for that. I'd love to see you there. Go out and create a virtual event. Have a great week, guys, and keep podcasting.